7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eric Wright's a maker, thinker, puppeteer, performer, tinker. But to get it done, he knows 2 heads are better than 1. You'll be delighted at who he's invited to come on by. Get inspired and give their tricks a try. Their work and processes will ignite your own curiosities. Spark authentic conversation. We love your participation. With Katie standing by, let's start the connection. It's puppet time online at Puppet Kitchen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Puppet Time Online is your chance to connect with some of the puppetry community's finest and me and hear about what they know about. And of course, Puppet Time Online is brought to you by the Puppet Kitchen. From designing to building to performing to coaching, Puppet Kitchen does it all. Now, as usual, I have Katie here.
Hi.
And it's a very special episode because there's no guest today. It's just me. But I have some announcements to make, and I also thought it might be fun to run through, the setup that we use for practice monitor work so that you can practice your television puppetry. That question comes up a lot for puppeteers, especially those who are just starting out, and for those who are trying to set up a home work environment. Now, Puppet Kitchen is doing some casting later today, which is why I have all of this stuff assembled. We are casting we're casting a project called Hamish the Hedgehog, and it's a project that we worked on earlier during the quarantine, a month or so ago. And Jamie Bressler built this beautiful puppet. And of course, we need to find a voice. We need to find a character. We need to find a puppeteer to bring Hamish to life for various social media posts and various videos and on and on and on. So we are casting Hamish the Hedgehog later today. And we've got about 18 people coming in for auditions, which is really exciting. It's a ton of great folks that we're going to see. So why don't we just jump in, and if you have any questions or comments, or if I'm leaving anything out, of course, please leave them in the comments below. We're on YouTube Live and Facebook Live and Twitch, which I think is also over there. Have you checked, Katie?
I think it's different when you're on your phone or you're on your laptop.
I don't know. There's really no way of knowing. But I also like being able to point to where the thing is.
Yeah.
That makes me feel important.
Sometimes you should just do that. Yeah.
But leave it in the comments section.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just made me do that.
I did, yeah.
Tricked me. Well, then let's just get into it. So in order to work with a puppet on camera, you need a monitor. This is just a basic rule of puppets on camera. Puppets being on camera for television or movies or anything like this, you can trace a direct line to Jim Henson and the work of the Henson Company. They kind of invented this style of puppetry. Now, of course, putting a puppet on your hand or using a puppet to lip sync had been in use before. That wasn't new. But the technique that Henson pioneered was the idea of giving the puppeteer a monitor where they can see what's happening on camera. And what that allows you to do is, as a puppeteer, you are now able to participate as an audience member, a little bit as a camera person, sort of composing the frame. And more importantly, you can look right down the barrel of the camera, just like I'm doing right now. Obviously, if you're a puppet, you cannot see through your eyes like you do a human.
Wait, how does that work again?
Yeah, let me slow this down for Katie one moment here. A puppet's eyes are not real.
What?
I'm sorry. But so there's no way to really know if you are looking right at the camera. But if you have a monitor, you can, and with some practice, you can train yourself to be able to look directly at the camera with your hand because you have some feedback. What happened was when Henson was pioneering this setup, camera, well, there's a lot of mythology around it, I suppose, is that one version of it says that the camera's equipment at the time just didn't have the ability to flip the view on the monitor. Another mythology says that, of course, that technology existed. However, if you view exactly what the camera sees, you can be a more active participant in the scene. The composition of the scene is part of what you are looking at as a puppeteer, part of what you're concerned with. And so today, especially with people who are trained with an American style of TV puppetry, you want a monitor that shows you exactly what the camera sees with no lag. And that is a really key feature. You want to be able to see essentially just what the camera is seeing. A lot of monitor setups these days are designed for directors, or are designed for people who are viewing what's in the camera remotely. They don't need to see it exactly at the moment that it's being created. However, for puppeteers, if there's any lag between what you're performing and what you're seeing on the camera, it's like having an out-of-body experience. There's no way to get into that performance, and you go crazy. A little bit crazy.
It's a scientific fact.
It's a scientific fact. There's puppeteers who have been driven mad by lag. So, but fortunately, with the advent of HDMI, it's very easy to get a very direct connection from a camera to a monitor.
What is HDMI, Eric?
It stands for.
It's okay if you don't know what it stands for, but.
Oh, I forget what it stands for. Something media interface, digital media interface, something digital media interface. You want to look it up? What it is a type of cable.
Yeah. High definition multimedia interface.
High definition multimedia interface. So it's a type of cable. You're probably familiar with it because it is becoming the standard for how you hook up like a Blu-ray player or a Switch or a gaming console to a television. And it provides a lot of information and a direct connection between one output and one input. That technology has been around for a while. So some of this equipment you can buy new, of course, but a lot of it you can buy used. In fact, the camera that we use still with Puppet Kitchen stuff is just a tiny little camcorder that we bought many, many years ago for about $200. $250 is about what camcorders go for these days. But you can get one of these used on Poshmark, I think, for $50. Like, this is totally fine. It doesn't have the image quality necessarily that you would want for a broadcast or for a film that you're making, but it shoots in HD, and it's totally reasonable for what you need for practice time, and that's really what we want to talk about here today. So let's start with the camera. It's just a lens, and it has a sensor on it, and this one has a little lens cap on it. The important things about this, the important things to look for when you're looking for a practice camera are that you can plug it in. This one has an AC adapter that plugs into it, a little DC power that goes into it, so you don't have to worry about battery. And the other thing is that you can get a clean feed. And what I mean by clean feed is that you can see, you can see on this screen, on the camcorder, that there's all this information about what you're shooting. However, what you want to see on the monitor is the picture that the camera's seeing without any of that information on it. And that's usually just adjusted in the settings of the camera. If you want to record your practice sessions, you should get a memory card. This one runs off of an SD card. I have a micro SD that's in an adapter that's in this camera. The other thing to look at is that it has an HDMI port on it. Now, a lot of camcorders these days, as they get smaller and smaller, will have an HDMI mini. And just to make it confusing, there is also HDMI micro. Just make sure that, it's a bit like plumbing. Make sure that the thing you're plugging into matches the thing that you need to plug into, right? So the HDMI cord that I have has a little adapter on it. And this is a little adapter I got for probably $10 on Amazon. It's an HDMI mini, but you'll notice it also is angled, so when I plug it into the camera, it sits straight down out of the camera this way. So it doesn't get pulled on, it doesn't break that connection. It's just a little handy. Don't need it, but it is nice to have. And then I have a very long HDMI cord, and this one is a little bit cobbled together, but you can get HDMI cords in lots of different lengths. You'll want to look for something right off the bat that's about 10 feet long, because you need to get from the camera, which is going to be put up high, down to the monitor, which should be low. A lot of people ask about monitor placement. I like to have the monitor below my eye level so that it helps pull my head down. I'm a tall guy, but as it pulls my head down, it helps keep my head out of the frame if I'm looking down towards the monitor with the puppet up in the air. Of course, this all depends on how you want to set up your camera. I prefer to be standing when I'm practicing, so that I have the most muscles available. Like as soon as I'm sitting, I've locked off a bunch of muscles that I can't use to move around. And it's just more comfortable to reach over my head and operate the puppet above me while I look at the monitor down below. If I'm working with more than one person, you can pack a lot of people in close together if you're all standing up. If you're all sitting, it takes a little bit more choreography. But again, having a long HDMI cord, so because you're running directly from the camera to your monitor, you want some flexibility in where that monitor can go. Ours has a little bit of a breaker box in it that connects two cords together. This is actually a HDMI switcher, but it doesn't matter. It works perfectly well as just running a line through, allowing me to connect two cords. So we've got a cord, and that runs down to the monitor. Now, again, this is a super old monitor that we use. This is like really pretty basic. I think we bought this on a discount site or something like that. Like there's always sales on monitors, and you don't need a fancy one. In fact, having one that's simpler can often make your life a little easier because there's fewer options to deal with. The only thing that you need to make sure that it has an HDMI in, and that's the port where the cord from your camera will go. This one has a lot of older connections on it. You can see a lot of the old RCA connections, a lot of the computer connections. A lot of monitors you can buy for cheap these days only have an HDMI because that's become the industry standard. As far as monitor size goes, the bigger is better. As you know, you want one that is as big as you can afford, but don't break the bank. I generally don't like to work on a monitor that's smaller than 7 inches, and that's one that I can get pretty close. Anything smaller than that, and it becomes very difficult to see if your eye focus is on straight. This one I think is 17 inches, and it's an old computer monitor, and it works great. It's not the highest resolution. Again, like the camera's not the highest resolution, the monitor's not the highest resolution, but there's no lag, and it's a nice big screen that I can look at. And it's, also not the flattest monitor, but it's perfectly portable. It does the job. And that's really what we're looking at, especially because this is a practice monitor setup. So the next thing that's also very, very useful to have is a tripod. You can, of course, get tripods in lots of different sizes. Like I said, I like to stand when I do practice work for monitor work. So this is a 72-inch tripod when it's all extended and the neck is all the way up. That only gets as high as my eye level, but it's enough for me to do something. And I can crouch a little bit, or if it's just me, I can stand off to the side and practice that way. They sell larger tripods, for cheaper, probably somewhere in the range of $50 to $100. You could get an okay tripod. If you can't get a whole tripod, you can get a clamp and then clamp to something up high in your room. We have a clamp that works really nicely. Thank you, Katie. That I use for a lot of different things. This is a 11-inch magic arm that I got at B&H Photo Video. This is an arm that you can adjust with just one knob, and it opens up this way. It clamps onto lots of things, and it has a standard camera mount on the other end. So you could use this to clamp onto like a shelf and then put your camera up here and then run the cord down. I use this to hold the light, which I'm going to talk about next. Thank you very much, Katie. So because this is puppetry on camera, a big difference that I've noticed, being a puppeteer who's trained in the theater first, the biggest difference I noticed between being in the theater and being on camera is that being in the theater sort of relies on darkness. Being on camera relies on light. Like, cameras are still catching up to being able to see as well as we do in the dark. For your lower end cameras to really work well, you want to have some kind of light. Again, fortunately, everybody is working. A lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are getting comfortable on Zoom and streaming like this. So there are pretty inexpensive ring lights, which is what I'm using here. If you want a slight step up, you can get one of these LED panel lights. Again, it like has a little area to screw into the arm that we use. And what I've constructed on top of it is a little bit of a diffuser. And they sell fancy diffusion screens, and they sell things that look like this. This one I made literally out of cardboard and wax paper, and it does fine. But all it does is it sort of softens the light a little bit, which makes the shadows less harsh on whatever you're shining it on. In an ideal world, you would want to bounce this light off of a big light surface, like a wall or a ceiling. That also helps to diffuse the light. But if it goes right at you, or if it goes right at your puppet, you definitely want to have some kind of diffusion on it, just to make the picture a little bit prettier. So all of those things have power. That's the other thing that you need to think about. Your camera needs a power on all the time. Your monitor needs power on all the time. Your lights need power on all the time. So we always have so many power strips and extension cords all the time. So we've got these all wrapped up because we're going to a rehearsal space that's going to be far away. We want to set this up far away from the wall, and we can want to plug everything into one strip. Again, this is an older power strip. It doesn't need to be anything fancy except a way to link everything you're doing into one plug into the wall. Excuse me. And that's kind of it. That's the setup. You have a camera on a tripod with a monitor down below. You have a light so you can see yourself, and a puppet. And as long as that camera is showing you as long as that monitor is showing you exactly what the camera sees without any lag, as long as you have enough light to see yourself and what you're doing, to see your performance well, then you're able to do the really tricky part, which is to practice monitor puppetry. Because the monitor will be showing you exactly what the camera sees, and you're facing the camera, the monitor will feel flipped. That is, when you move your puppet to the left and the right, what you see on the monitor is opposite, right? When you look left, the puppet on the monitor looks right. When you look up and down, it's the same. And when you move left and right, it's opposite. So it takes some getting used to. It really takes probably 100 hours of practice until your brain flips. And there really is like a switch flips in your brain, and then you don't have to think about it. That's the point where you want to get to. In fact, you want to get at least to there so that you can learn about framing, how to make entrances and exits, how to really hit eye focus from any point. Those are all the technique elements that you learn so that you can act. And that's really ultimately what you're working towards. You're working towards a subconscious understanding of how this monitor puppetry works, so that the conscious energy you're putting into it is about acting the scene. It's about creating the moment. It's about connecting with the audience. If I missed anything, if you have any questions about any of this equipment, absolutely leave them in the comments, and I'll try and respond. Did I leave anything out?
You're asking the wrong person.
I mean, is there anything that I've put around me that I haven't talked about yet? No, I think that's it. It really is. It can be quite a simple setup. And that's kind of the point of it. You don't need to spend a lot of money, but you do need to have a setup that reflects what you actually should have when you have the real thing. A lot of the webcams that are in computers they haven't built in the ability they always show a mirrored image, because it's easier when people are on camera to see because people are used to looking in a mirror. So when you look left, it looks left. If you can find a piece of software that flips that camera, that's great. Then you can use your webcam. You can kind of get off to the side. However, I really encourage you, if you are interested in monitor puppetry, to fashion yourself a monitor setup like this. It really makes a difference. Like once you start to get used to once you get used to the flipped picture, you can move the monitor around to different sides. Like I can't tell you how many times on set when you're shooting a puppets on camera, especially if there's more than one person, your monitor might be in front of you, it might be off back behind you, it might be on the other side of you than you're used to. Like that monitor should be able to move anywhere, and anywhere that you see it, you should be able to know exactly how to look right down the barrel of the camera. So you should be able to look at a monitor on this side of you and see where that is, a monitor to this side of you. And you can only really do that if you have a camera that isn't built into your monitor, like a webcam. There are, of course, outside webcams that you can get, again, for pretty cheap, that will plug into your computer, and you can use that setup. But again, because it's plugging into the computer ecosystem, there aren't a whole lot of programs that will give you that reverse, that straight scan, as it's called, instead of the reverse scan, which is the mirror image. And that's really what's important. That's really what you want to practice. Once you get out of plus this, we have this setup that we've used for monitor nights when we used to host monitor nights back in the day. We set up a gym, sort of a gym for puppeteers where they could come and practice this work. And now I'm using it for auditions. I use it for myself. I've used it for other audition material. So it's just really good to have on hand. You can use used equipment. You can get used equipment on the cheap. A little bit of investment in this kind of a setup will really pay off in your ability to rehearse and get better at this style of puppetry.
Why don't they just flip the image? Why is it important to know
That's a really good question. And I think in the UK, they prefer to have a flipped image.
like so you're matched.
So that you're on a mirror scan.
Yeah.
The reason why I've always been told that you want to have a straight scan is because the image that you're looking at has a narrative built into it based on the framing, right? Imagine the image that I was always given is like, that picture of that big that Japanese wood carving of the big wave with the people in the little boat. It was, I love that wood carving, but it was also pointed out to me that the artist who made it read right to left, like would read words right to left as a Japanese person. And we as Americans would read left to right. And that the way that we process information left to right or right to left dictates how we take in information, pictures, images that we're viewing. So to really get a sense of what that wood carving would have looked like to the artist, look at that picture as a mirror image. And it totally changes the feeling of that image. Instead of this little boat running away from a giant wave, it's a little boat like plowing into a giant wave when I look at it. And that's totally different. That's a totally different story. The same is true on camera. You want to be able to help frame the picture so that everything looks the way the audience sees it, not the way that you're seeing it. And the way that was communicated to me, the way that I was taught was that you want to be creating a picture for the audience. So I think that's the reason why it stuck, even though we have, the ability to change it around. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about monitor setups. I think it's super important. I think it's really helpful to just have, to just reiterate that if you're putting a puppet on camera, you should have a monitor. This question comes up over and over and over again on many puppet shoots, especially if the cameraman or the director or the DP or the director has never worked with puppetry before. They always ask, do I need a monitor? Do you actually need a monitor? Could you just work and we'll just shoot you? And the analogy that I have come up with that will help, I've found is helpful communicating to people who haven't worked with puppetry, but who are familiar with camera work, is that it's a bit like shooting it's a bit like shooting video, but with no viewfinder. Like, is it possible to shoot video that way? Of course. Like, we have GoPros that you just put on your helmet, or you just like set up a camera and it captures all the stuff, and then you frame it up later or whatever. Or like, I could just carry this around and point it at stuff, and that would film a perfectly fine video. But if you want the puppet to help frame the image, if you want the puppeteer to help frame the image, if you want the puppeteer to make really clean entrances and exits, or like play with the frame, those old Sesame bits where they're like popping in and out of the side, like Menomina popping in and out of the side of the frame. Like, that's only possible if you can see what you're doing as a puppeteer. And if you want the puppet to make eye contact with the camera or with the audience, you need a monitor. I've just started saying that you need a monitor anytime. There's no reason I could think of where you wouldn't want a monitor as a puppeteer on camera, just so you know what you're delivering. Your eyes are not, it's very different than as an actor on camera, because you can kind of get a sense of where you are. Again, puppet eyes can't see. Sometimes you get a puppet that doesn't even have eyes, and you need to be able to see what the audience sees. So I think it's just a good across the line. You need puppets. You need a monitor if you have puppets on camera, and for that to really go smoothly, puppeteers who are going to be on camera need to know how to use a monitor. And this setup will help you practice at home. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. Thank you for joining us on this one. I do want to announce that Puppet Time Online is going to be off for the next 2 months, which is a bit sad. However, it's for a great reason, which is that rehearsals and performances for Little Shop of Horrors Off-Broadway are starting up, and I'll be rejoining the cast again as one of the puppeteers, along with Teddy Udane of Audrey 2, the Giant Man-Eating Plant. You should all come see the show. It's incredible. I'm so excited to get back into the room. There's going to be some new cast members, a lot of returning cast members. Jeremy Jordan is going to start as our Seymour when we come back on the 21st day of the month of September, Little Shop Day. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be incredible. And I just can't think about two things at once, so I have to take a break from Puppet Time Online. But you can always reach out to, if you want. Oh, look, I'll do all the brand stuff that we usually do. You can find more about what's going on at the Puppet Kitchen at our website, puppetkitchen.com. Follow us on Instagram. Of course, follow, like, and subscribe here on YouTube. And if you want to support this show on Patreon, you should consider doing that. Help us bring in great guests when we pick back up in October. I think that's it. It's been great having you. Thank you so much. This was our 54th episode. And I just want to thank you all again for following along with us, for watching each week. And thank you, Katie, for being my foil and make sure that I answer everything and stay on target.
Very welcome.
So until next time, just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.